Namaste, my friend. Welcome to Bhakti Yoga Conference, Grace in an Age of Distraction. My name's Happy Jack, the founder of Happy Jack Yoga University and a Master of Divinity student here at Harvard. And really, the intention of this conference is to bring together beautiful souls like yourself, here to be a part of it, and also some esteemed guests. We've got monks and scholars and yogis and thought leaders, musicians, scientists, people from all walks of life, and really here to share their heart, their wisdom, their life with us, and with hopes of inspiring you and myself as we continue this path. So I am going to, in a moment, spotlight our esteemed guest, but I'll just say, as of now, I haven't checked this morning, honestly, but I think we're just about 4,000 registrations for the conference. So thank you so much for being a part of it. The majority of you, of course, are watching the replay. If you have questions, we're going to have time for Q&A today. So, see what is on your heart and be ready for that. But I'm going to spotlight our guest while I say a few words. Please welcome to the stage Bhaktimarga Swami, who was born in Chatham, Ontario, Canada. Fellow Canadian, I love that. He's also known as the walking monk for having trekked 4 times across Canada. We got a big country. That's a big trek. Keeping up with the spirit of pilgrimage, he also crossed the USA, Israel, Ireland, Guyana, Trinidad, Mauritius, and the Fiji Islands. Wow. Documentation of his Canadian walks are found in 2 films, The Longest Road by the National Film Board of Canada and Walking, The Lessons of the Road by Michael Osh. The walking monk's pilgrimages have also been covered by numerous international newspapers, radio, and television outlets. As a youth, Swami was a student of fine arts, but took to the life of a monk at age 20 in 1973. Although pursuing monastic ways, he maintains artistic expression through morality theater, which takes him around the globe as a playwright and director, an opportunity to work with talented youth in various communities. He's also published 2 books, The Saffron Path, Trekking the Globe, and The Walking Monk, detailing his marathon walking adventures, and poems which explores spiritual, social, and walking culture. Bhaktimarga Swami is also an instructor of Bhakti Yoga, a leader of musical mantra meditation called Kirtan, and a speaker on the science of the self based on teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. As I said, he's a fellow Canadian based in Toronto, which is very close to me. And actually, out of divine intervention, Bhaktimarga Swami and members of his community just opened a Krishna cultural center in my hometown, small town Canada, middle of nowhere in a sense. And all of a sudden, Krishna Cultural Center is right there. I see that as a sign. And this past fall, I had the privilege of attending a retreat with Bhaktimarga Swami. It was called Mantra. It was a men's retreat, really learning how can we as men be better, be better for women in our lives, be better for ourselves, be better for humanity. It was a beautiful experience. I love your creativity, your music, just the way you express yourself. Truly, it's an honor to have you here with us. The title of today's session is Spiritual Pilgrimage, Tales from Trails. My friends, if you are ready to get started with Bhaktimarga Swami, throw your arms in the air and loudly chant, Haribol. Amazing. We'll get you off of mute, my friend.
Haribol.
Welcome to the conference. It's beautiful to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's very conscientious of you to have me on board.
Well, it was a no-brainer as we were putting together the lineup, to be able to have people like yourself who have been living this for so many years. I mean, over 50 years now. That's kind of crazy.
That's right.
That's quite incredible. And a question that we love to start with with each of our different speakers is what brought you to your spiritual path. Like at some point you were just a young Canadian boy like I was back in the day, and yet at a very young age, you much earlier than me, I'm envious in that sense. How did you end up on this spiritual journey? How did you end up here?
Yes, thanks, Jack, for the question. Well, I was raised on a farm in southwestern Ontario, and my parents were immigrants, Dutch blood, so they had the Dutch touch, the green thumb, and we had like I was raised on a family farm. My dad worked at a factory. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. She looked after us kids. Five siblings I have. We like each other. I'm the oldest and good karma. I was born. Then a year and a half later came my sister. A year and a half later, a brother. A year and a half later, a sister. And a year and a half later, a brother and a sister, twins. So
Wow.
we're kind of close to each other. We helped each other. I'm a firm believer in big families, but I had a different destiny, and that was not to get married. I'm a celibate throughout my life, and I took a fine arts course up in Northern Ontario, where I had some relatives living, and I was thinking maybe this is the route that I should take, but no. I met some monks from the Toronto chapter. They were on a trip coming back from the West Coast, and I invited them to my place, and that's when I got a real good dose of bhakti or devotion. They told me a lot in that little session, that one evening. It was the first time I never slept for like the whole night. Um, and
Wow.
and why? There's something stirring up inside of me, and it had to do with my life. After meeting them, I spent 3 months contemplating on what I should do while I was a good student with fine arts. And just one day when I was hitchhiking, when hitchhiking was a lot safer, I I wasn't getting much success at people stopping. It was a beautiful sunny day on a Saturday afternoon, and I was at a mood where I just was exasperated. I said, "Screw the world." Basically, I was just saying that I'm just going to walk back 9 miles. And during that walk, in a synchronistic way, I was thinking, you know what? I really have to join those guys. I have to check out what ashram life is like in a monastery in Toronto on Gerrard Street. So I went and I stayed overnight, had a good time. I liked the early rising. It just resonated for me. And Jack, it's a little bit like you feel like I've been here before. It's from a previous life connection. And so it came so natural and organic for me. After that weekend stay, I decided I'm going to really give this a good go, and I did. I had 1 month left to complete my first year course, and the calling was so great, so compelling that I just had to join, and I did. I never looked back. Entered the front door, 187 Gerrard. Still remember the address, and I felt this is it for me. And I love the family atmosphere. We were all like on a quest. Of course, we're talking about I was part of the residual effect of the 60s, where people were searching on a genuine quest for life. And so I found it and I said, this is it. I never looked back, and that's it. I'm 52 years later. I'm still at it, and uh, it's just something that it's not for everybody, but it was definitely a perfect fit for this uh, young guy, at least at the time. Now I'm much older, but if you're a firm believer in transmigration of the soul, you realize that you're just a permanent fixture. You're a jiva, an atma, and life goes on. You age, you mature, hopefully, and then you get slotted into a new body in the next life.
Yeah.
And so that here I am today. I've had a lot of experience in different areas. our guru, Srila Prabhupada, who's the founder, Acharya of the Hare Krishna movement, he wanted us to be good all-arounders, if I can use that term. He liked us to know how to conduct a kirtan, which is a chanting session, how to give a class based on the Bhagavad Gita. He wanted us to get some experience in the kitchen, experience with dealing with the public, and business, cleaning, pretty much everything that would be capsulized in the lifestyle of a monk or a nun. And so that's it. And I'm here. I'm happy. Um, I've written plays based on the epical tales of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. And I get a chance to work with a lot of young people, and that makes me really happy. I feel a bit younger, take a few notches, I would say, up just by associating with the young folks. And automatically you become a counselor as they go through their stuff. It's just a good life, and I don't have any regrets. So that's a synopsis in some way.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, giving us a sense of really what brought you here. And the question I want to ask, and you started answering in a sense of just all the beautiful aspects of being a part of the Bhakti Yoga community. But can you share a little bit more? Like, what was it? Did you have an experience that had you stay? Because it's one thing to join and give it a test and stay for a week or a year, but you've now been 52 years. Was there something that Prabhupada said, or something about being in the association with the devotees, or something that you received from doing your sadhana that like was the tipping point of like, what, I'm not just gonna do this for a little bit, but I'm giving my life to this path?
Right. Well, there's one thing that I always felt about Bhakti Yoga once I heard about it and read about it, and that is that I understood it has roots from India. And India was always a mystical place for me. It's something that was ignored in our textbooks in school. And we spent a lot of time in Canada and its history and American history and British history. And that's about it. You just kind of scan, you zip through everything else. And I said, why is that? What about China? What about India? These are ancient civilizations that are time tested. And so I was really intrigued, And I think one item that really, let's say, was that gave me the strong commitment was, to be honest, with the Beatles, they went to India. The Beatles, the Fab Four, they went to Rishikesh and spent some time with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And then after that, with our guru, Srila Prabhupada. And there was a sort of a migration, definitely a strong interest of Westerners, people from the developed world, so-called, going to India and exploring not only its cuisine, but I think more importantly, the wisdom and the yoga practices that go along with it. So I was very convinced if these guys are going there and they've got benefit from it, hey, maybe I should give it a shot. And I felt extremely comfortable. Um, I was raised as a Catholic, and I was quite devout. I used to go to church, to mass before I went to school, just of my own volition. And I just felt a kind of peace there. Jesus was a hero for me, of course, like for many people. And there was always, let's say, people were just cordial, friendly, nice, and kind of contrary to the rough world in which we live. And of course, it's escalated to greater heights these days. But I just felt really comfortable. I felt happy for the first time. I mean, what more can you want? You rise early, you sing, you dance, you sit down and go over philosophical texts and validating yourself as a spirit soul, gaining a true identity of yourself instead of some facadish notion of yourself. And I just felt happy doing things, being just very active and busy, and there was no room to space out. There was just always something to do in the ashram. And one thing that was a wonderful feature of living in the temple and mixing with the devotees, the bhakti yogis, is that you had a chance to travel all over the place. For us from Toronto, meant going to Detroit, Buffalo in those days, going to India, exotic places all over the States. And the sky was the limit when it came to travel. So, when they say that the Rolling Stone collects no moss, that's true for a wandering mendicant, somebody who goes around either in groups or doing it solo. And so all the components were there to make this guy happy. And I would just say that um, if you look at some of the contents of the Gita and you look at the four social and spiritual orders of life that people fit sort of comfortably in, like almost like boxed in. I, for myself, I like the simple life. I didn't want to get so implicated in family life. I didn't see a lot of happy people, honestly, in partnering up. And at the same time, I'm probably the first person to encourage people towards a wholesome family life and get on and don't drag your feet too long. Get settled, learn how to share, and also engage in sacrifice, which we call yajna, and get on with it so you can really mature. So by the time that you are in not just the prime years of your life, but much beyond, you can learn detachment, or what we call vairagya, and then leave this world in a happy state, happy enough to say, I've done it all. And or like you sit with your partner on a rocking chair and address your loved one. Well, it was a hard one, but we did it. We got the kids married, all that stuff. I'm just kind of old school, to be honest with you, and I'd like people to just be, let's say, as we might say, fixed up and get on with life as it should be.
Mm.
Contribute,
Yeah.
contribute to the world through children, and good, happy children. Contribute to the world through kindness and sharing whatever gyan or wisdom you can. And all those opportunities were there for me by being in the ashram and my travels.
Mm. That's beautiful. I love that. I want to ask one more question before we kind of shift to, the walking and the pilgrimage the many pilgrimages that you've done. Something I appreciated when we spent that time together at New Vrindavan for the mantra retreat. I feel like, of course, everybody's unique in their own way, but I feel like you're just in your full self-expression, like you are your own unique self and you're making bhakti yoga. You're expressing it in a way that's authentic for you with your dramas, with your music, the way that you carry yourself and lead program in the morning. And I really appreciate that. And, the one morning we went for a japa walk and I kind of, revealed, for me, it's hard to sit in one spot, and,
Mm.
and chant and do my rounds in that sense. It's so much easier to walk. And I know that, there could be something to be said about I could get distracted looking around, but it just works for me. And I remember when I shared that with you, that what immediately came out of your mouth was no hard and fast rules. And that's one of the teachings of bhakti yoga. There's no hard and fast rules. And I see that you embody that. And I guess I just wanted to ask, when you're, working with your community and those that you lead, I guess, beyond just that sentence, how do you encourage us? We've got newer bhakti yogis like myself on this call. We got yogis I'm seeing who just got their first set of malas like a week or two ago. And we're kind of figuring out our sadhana, we're figuring out our practice, we're trying out different things. In that realm, how would you, offer us some guidance?
Well, we do live in a world of exploration and experimentation. We're encouraged, especially in the West, Um, fly your own plane. And for me, I'll be honest with you, I was kind of a shy kid. I was introverted, but I didn't want to be there. I wanted to just express myself very freely. And I found incredible confinement in the environment that I was raised in. Um, I think, like a lot of kids growing up, I did go through some bullying experience more on a psychological level. Um, Nothing's too traumatic, but in general, I really wanted to be in a place where I could feel totally at home. And uh, I think most of us are shy to be able to just get behind a camera or on a microphone. Most people are shy about many things, just filling out an application form that might come from the government or any institution. You know, there's a lot of things that intimidate us, but I think we all crave for confidence building, and that comes from when you navigate your inner self, when you explore your inner self. And I always liked something, a catchy phrase is like, well, you know, you're not that body, you know, you're a spirit, and the spirit goes on living forever and ever. There's no beginning, no end. So I embrace that, and I, I I build up incredible confidence. In fact, I remember when the first few weeks that I was at the temple, when I was sometimes shaking like a leaf, you know, I was kind of traumatized by the hard world outside, and it was so nice to be accepted for what you are. And you know, we lived in a building. There were 40 of us in a rented house. 40, not four, 40. We crammed it all in, and we were happy. And I remember speaking to a colleague of mine, a friend, Bibi Govindaswamy, and we grew up together. He was my bigger brother because he joined before I did. You know, we didn't fight with each other. We didn't argue with each other. It was like that. That was the climate at the time, and so it can't get better than this, you know. So it doesn't mean to say, and I don't want to be, you know, saying something naive or, but um, whenever you're with people, people spills problems. You know, we collide, we clash with our different personalities. Chemistry doesn't always work the same, but when you have a common denominator, and which is in this case bhakti yoga, to please Krishna and not so much yourself, then it just bonds everyone together so nicely. And that's what I was looking for, a real sense of community, something I wasn't getting before, to be honest with you. So if yoga means to reconnect with the divine, to have union with the supreme forces, I was getting it. And I would like to encourage people to do that too. I would start off in the day by chanting some mantras, doing some meditation. And like yourself, I like to walk, I like to pace. I'll spend a little time sitting, but I'll spend a lot of time walking. And some of us are a little more passionate by nature. So I always like the word that our guru used, dovetail or channel your talents, you know, towards the divine. And so do that. And I love the stories, those epical Puranic stories. I would just encourage people to explore them. And, you know, vegetarianism, for instance, or veganism wasn't so popular in the 60s. Maybe it was at the cutting edge. So, you know, being raised on the farm, we uh, we had meat on the dinner table, and I never liked it. There was something saying it's just not right to engage these poor animals in, you know, being my meat, my meal. And so here I met devotees, and I felt, wow, what a wonderful thing watching a chapati or a puri being made, and it just puffs up over the flame, and then it flattens out and does it again when you turn it over. Everything was quite magical, mystical, and I would just encourage people to explore the devotional items. And just like we're very eager to try any new gadget that comes on the market, but why not explore the self a little bit more? Why not just open up big and wide, and also share what's common amongst all the different groups? There are different yogic paths, different spiritual or faith groups. We all have something in common, and we should share that and get away from the tendency to, well, I've got the right path, and you're misled. That sort of condescending um, tendency or attitude. It can be very damaging to the soul. So let's try to get what's the common element amongst all of us, and ride on that wave.
Mm, I love that. That Imagine the world when that becomes the case. I hope that
Oh,
happens. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Well, I would have so many questions to keep, unraveling. You've been doing this for 52 years now, but let's shift the conversation to really what you're known for. Your nickname is the Walking Monk. You've done these incredible pilgrimages. I mean, across Canada. I mean, that's a long way. 4 times, all these other countries. Could you say, I guess, two things? One, say a little bit about pilgrimage, because it wasn't just about like get exercise for you or setting a
Mhm.
goal. Say a little bit like what is pilgrimage, and what is it that drew you to these walks and these pilgrimages?
Well, pilgrimage for me meant to get out in the world. You could live a cloistered life and, you know, be away from everything. I mean, I'm so I joined in '73. That meant I missed a lot in the pop culture, for instance, and of course disco too, which some people say you're not missing anything. Michael Jackson's Moonwalk. I didn't even understand what that was all about. But I really was, it's like very sheltered, and I felt, let me get out on the road, let me meet the people, and maybe touch them a little bit spiritually. There's several reasons for my getting out there, and one was that our guru would be 100 years. That was back in '96. So for me, it was a celebratory walk. And also the year prior, Canada was maybe about to split. Quebec was thinking, let's do what Scotland was to Great Britain. And I'm a patriotic person. I didn't want that to happen. So I just wanted to put my heart and feet together and get out there and just kind of get up close, see everything close, and what nature has to offer, and people as well. And it was just the greatest adventure. And only because I had to change my knees, I wore them down so badly. Otherwise, I just keep going full steam ahead and hit a few more countries.
That's amazing. It's really refreshing to hear that, because it's in the sense opposite of, scholars who come in. Some of the scholars we have in are scholar practitioners, and some are, purely scholars of the tradition. But for me, I resonate with like, get out there, let's put it into practice, let's engage, let's share. In a sense, it's like,
Mhm.
it reminds me of, in Canada, we sit around the campfire, we go out camping on the long weekend, and it's a way to come together and share. And I mean, back in my day, it was a bit of partying, but you're coming together and engaging and really understanding people. And what a beautiful way to live life.
Well, pilgrimage can be seen in different ways. I would oftentimes stop in at any religious place and just reflect on there for a little bit. I remember, taking a sneak and having a power nap or cat nap on the back of a Jehovah's Witness building, just because it's a quiet place. Cemeteries, they're one of the best places for having a cat nap. Just some hints for anybody who wants to, go at it with power walking. Yeah, so it's meeting people, and also having a chance to have some time for yourself, downtime, contemplation, and really appreciating that I'm the pilgrim here. I'm appreciating that the sky is my ceiling, the trees, except for when you're in the prairies, they're my walls. The gravel under me is the floor, and what's fun and exciting is what kind of weather am I going to deal with? What will I see out there that's adventurous? Um, you'll see aerial battles, um, a small black bird going after a crow because, just to get him away from the eggs, the nest, and all this wonder. It's the simple things that you pick up on that become very endearing and that you hold so precious. There are the challenges too. Naturally, you get tired. You go through the bug season, black flies, horse flies, deer flies, all kinds of flies. And you have to learn detachment from that automatically. Um, what else? There's a lot of fun behind it. Uh, when you do take a nap, will it be behind a church or in a barn? I've done everything, behind a rock. And there's a moose skeletal body frame still right next to you. It didn't matter. Maybe a bear would come right up and sniff at you. I mean, pretty much all the above you experience, and it's all quite okay. That's part of adventure. And I love one of the phrases or verses from the Gita where Krishna says, "I am adventure." And you start to the pages from the Gita start to become very real. It's not just a text about instructions, but it's a text about living and breathing it and appreciating that all that's out there is an aspect of the divine, and it's to be taken seriously. So there's a lot of challenges there, but great moments of victory. And when a motorist will pull over and say, "Would you like a ride?" And I have to, sadden them by saying, "Well, I'm not taking any rides. I'm doing this walk across Canada." And then, of course, they get a little bit floored and said, "What are you doing?" "I'm walking across Canada." Yeah. "And what for?" "Well, for the spiritual healing of the nation, to get more in touch with myself." And it's a little in the beginning, it's small talk, but then you can go deeper with folks. And the biggest thing on people's minds is relationships. I have to tell you that. It's not about, at the campfire singing Kumbaya, but it's really more about relationships. How am I doing at home? How am I doing with my partner? And then, an opportunity to tell people, well, there's a supreme partner. Let's explore that. I remember I got in the paper in Winnipeg, Free Press, and they did an article about me. And then the next day, a young Filipino Canadian, he pulled over in his red sports car. He said, "Hey, I read about what you're doing. I think it's great." And, but I just needed to talk to somebody. I was going steady with a girl for 5 years, and she just took off with my best friend. So is it okay? We can talk a little bit. And so there's a moment to share, a moment to counsel, give comfort, and give some options and how to deal with what can be very depressing and oftentimes something that seems very hopeless. Yeah, so that kind of connection is always wonderful, and I think that just being out there and when people stop and talk, you're allowing them to dream a little bit. Like there was this McDougall, and I was just finishing my first walk near Halifax. And that day, I wasn't wearing my traditional robes because my support guy was doing the laundry. And, people out there, out east, they're really quite very kind. "Would you like a ride?" Because it was snow ridden everywhere. I say, "Well, I'm not taking any rides. I'm actually doing a walk across Canada." "Oh, really? Well, maybe we could talk a little bit. There's a lodge around the corner there. I can offer you a beer." I said, "Well, I don't take beer." And we went down the list, coffee, that also I don't take that. So, okay, well, anyways, how about a Mountain Dew? Okay, great. So I get into the lodge and it's a hunting lodge, and I didn't realize that until I get they're deer hunters. They were full in the kitchen, and just so happened I was in the front page of the paper that day. I said, "Well, this is me," and I revealed my shaven head. I had a hoodie on, And that's me. And I'm walking. It's like, that is you. I said, well, what does it take to be a monk? And all the guys sat around the kitchen table at the lodge, and they didn't laugh or they didn't joke. They were just kind of didn't know what to make of me, because they never met a monk before. And so they asked me, what does it take to be a monk? And I said, well, it's a good life. There's a lot of good things and of thoughtfulness that goes on. You explore your inner self. We have good food. And I told them a little bit about our restrictions, that we don't eat meat and we don't take any intoxications, et cetera, et cetera. And then everything was silent. I said, why isn't anybody cracking a joke of some sort and say, oh, so then this McDougall guy, he said, well, he sat in his chair, very contemplative. And he said, well, he imagined himself to be a monk. And he said, well, I could probably cut down on my women, because we're strict about sexual activities. I could probably cut down on meat too, but I can't give up my beer. So it was nice. It was an opportunity for McDougall and his friends to be in the shoes of a monk, and just to imagine. And I think for that you get some brownie points, some good karma, just trying to imagine yourself going for more like less is more kind of lifestyle of simplicity. So just by being out there, you give people the opportunity to imagine and to dream a little bit what it might be like to abstain from a few things, that some of the nasties that are out there.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. What a beautiful just life experiences to be able to engage in conversations, and we just never know the impact that we're having, the impact that you're having. You've used the word a couple times, contemplation, and just the way that you describe, being out on these walks and, seeing some birds, seeing the animals and being present. I know for myself, I'm especially now, being a student and running our yoga school and doing this conference, and it's I've spread very thin, and there's so much I'm missing out on. I can just call it out. Like I'm not noticing, not so present as I would want to be. And actually, our opening speaker, one of your godbrothers, was Sachinandana Swami, and he did this little meditation. We actually sat and we closed our eyes, and we kind of sat in silence and focused on our breath. And it kind of, you know, I didn't know that could be part of Bhakti Yoga. Like I thought that was like Hatha Yoga, and I thought that typically we're chanting mantras or we're doing kirtan, and now hearing you talk about contemplation and talking about being out in nature and just really being present, at least for me, it opens my mind to what bhakti can involve, right? It's not just the chanting of the japa or the doing of the kirtan or studying of the shastra. I find that very refreshing. Could you say more about contemplation and I guess the importance of it, or how that could look? Because most of us, can't walk across our country, but how could we incorporate some contemplative practices and just a little bit more stillness in our lives?
Well, just in regards to the long power walks, I'd spend the first 3 hours chanting with the assistance of my japa beads, 108 beads on each strand, and chanting the Maha Mantra. Then I left myself out open to the world. Uh, the media might come at that time, or people are on their way to work. I always start walking real early. And I would say that everybody needs some downtime, and you're talking about breathing, hearing your breathing. What about just inhaling and exhaling? The exhalation comes from just that walk. And, when you think about how our bodies are designed, they're meant totally for walking from head to toe. And not so much for sitting, but really, and although that's a component of the day, should be, but just getting out there and taking in the good air. And what to contemplate on? Well, a lot of it is gratitude, to be honest with you, Jack. A lot of it is, thankful for where you are and you have a certain freedom, and gratitude that you've got great, good air. And, I would jump into a lake if I was tempted. like on one day, the day of meditating on Krishna, his birthday, Janmashtami, I was actually, getting just losing it, almost having a blackout because I was on a full day fast. But I could hear beyond the trees and bushes. This is the northern Ontario. There's some water trickling over there, and I really had to struggle to get there. Just break some branch, just get there. Finally, I dove in, and I I I guess I didn't. I broke my water fast, and I don't think that's a big sin. But I just you start to really appreciate all that's there in several chapters of the Gita, where Krishna is identified as the elements, whether it's water, fire, air, ether, etc., or the mountains, or whatever is listed there as something that we look at with awe and reverence. You look at chapter 11 of the Gita, for instance, and you see that many features that you're in the midst of are in the pages of the Bhagavad Gita. So it just all comes alive. And so contemplating on the form of Krishna is important. Concentrating on the sound is important. That's what I mean by contemplation. And everything we do, even the food that we offer, we make use of mantras offered to an image of Krishna, and then it becomes what we call prasad, which means mercy. So when you're consuming that, it's not ordinary food. It's blessed, it's consecrated. So that is also a kind of contemplation. And I think for me, one of the big contemplation routes or channels is how well I will get along with everyone and how I will leave a good impression and encourage them in some kind of spiritual practice, to get beyond the body. And whether you're a Christian or Buddhist, it doesn't matter for me so much, just to get more to your spiritual side. That's important. I must admit, I wasn't really out there to convert everyone to my way of thinking. I thought it was I was making great leaps and bounds by just getting people to become a little more spiritual, and then it all adds up. Little drops wear away the stone. And there's a beautiful verse in the Gita where Krishna is telling his friend Arjuna, there's any little endeavor on this path is like offers the greatest protection. And protection from what? Well, living in fear, let's say living in, a constant anguish or anxiety, and just being a little comfortable with your own skin. And in the course of it all, the reason why walking is so good, you do develop, now I'll say, thick skin because of all the weather conditions that you have to deal with. And there are some neck dynamics out there. There are some people that are not favorable. I would say it's each time I went across Canada, it was like a handful, nothing more. And there's people who throw you the finger and all this other kind of stuff. But you have to let it roll off your back and kind of feel a bit bad for them. Well, why are they thinking that way? They don't know what I'm up to, you know.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. I love, something you said there. What I heard in that is that everything you do can involve contemplation. Whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, whether it's you're preparing your food prasadam, everything, all of the activities. That's very helpful. I'm going to ask one more question, and then I see virtual hands are coming up. You also said a little bit ago about confidence. You said, I forget I want to hear more about what it was, but you said, like, I have this confidence. And I think that's something a lot of us are seeking these days. There's this,
Mm-hmm.
there's this joke that, there's the fear of death, but then the fear of public speaking is actually greater than the fear of death. And so, the
Mm-hmm.
joke that, people would rather be at a funeral, they'd rather be the one in the casket than the one at the front of the room that has to give a speech. Can you say more about how you cultivated confidence that must have come from your spiritual sadhana, your practice? Because that is something a lot of people are seeking these days as yoga teachers, etc.
Well, recently I was in Cuba and I was talking to a group of yoga teachers and students. And the topic was how do you discern between something called Brahman and Parabrahman? So we talk about Brahman, it's in reference to the spiritual energy that's all pervasive in the world. When we talk about Parabrahman, you're talking about a more personalized aspect of the divine in your heart. So one of the yoga teachers was telling me after the talk, so that's the first time I ever heard of that. She was clarifying it. She said, I always heard about God or the Great Spirit is outside of you, but what you're saying is that it's inside of you. So when you hear that and become convinced through all the sadhana or the spiritual exercise you do build up some confidence. And I would just say that's what really worked for me is I'll give you an example. I was near Peterborough. I don't know if you know where that is. And a journalist came out to see me. She parked her car on the side of the road. We went on for a good hour. And after, hey, wait, my car is way back there, 1 hour. Yeah, so I got to get back. So she asked me a question, and this is common. It was quite recurring. So what's your day looking like? I said, well, then my answer will be something like this. And it came quite natural for me to say these things. Um, in the morning, we rise and we shower, and then we start walking, and we chant. I said, well, who's we? What are you talking about? There's only you and me here. And I explained, well, there's something called Paramatma. There's a whole chapter devoted to the Paramatma, like the divine power within you. And I get it. God in the heart. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's the confidence that comes from, like, you have that sort of maybe father figure, big brother figure, a protector there within you that gives you the confidence to be able to deal with some things that make you frail and damage or bruise you. So you have to just be very convinced that there is a power within you that's going to make you forge ahead, move forward, and get things done.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I see that with you. I mean, the weekend we spent together in West Virginia, the way that you sing and dance and lead dramas, you embody that spiritual confidence. So thank you for that distinction. We've got a hand up, so let's get our veterans here, Sarah and George, just about it. Well, practically every session. Love having you here.
Yeah, no,
Welcome.
Hare Krishna.
thanks, Jack. Thanks for that talk. I was really excited to see the topic of your conversation because although I've never done a pilgrimage, I do have some kind of latent urge to do something. So I've read a couple of books about a chap walking around the whole coast of the UK and a lady doing the Santiago, and I find it really interesting. So thank you. My question was actually quite a logistical one. Was this all planned? Did you have like a support team? How did you eat? All that, if you were planning on doing something like this, how does it work? Do you have a massive rucksack with a tent on it? Anything you can give us would be great because this is something we could potentially do ourselves.
Yes. So when I first started my first walk in '96, I started on the West Coast in Canada, and my direction was east. It was like an offering to my guru, and he was born in Kolkata, which is east. So that was the direction I was going in. I was looking for someone. I asked our community on the West Coast, can you find somebody who can support me? And we could work out of his car, van. And I found somebody. His name's Dave Poirier. And we operated out of a 79 Dodge vehicle, was kind of beat up looking, but pickers can't be choosers. And we slept in there and we cooked from there, like in a Coleman stove. And the routine we had is that we get up at the same time. We take our shower. We were crazy about that. Even it was let's say, I don't know, one of those mountain stream, cold as you can imagine, bucket water
Yeah.
showers. And then he dropped me off at the spot from where I was left off the day before. And we'd leave a white bucket there. Okay, this is the spot, the actual spot. Then take that bucket in and then leave it for the next night, to be our demarcation point. And so and he would check on me once in a while to see if I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
There are concerns about mountain lions and bears, and
Mm.
like in much of Canada, to be honest with you, almost the whole country has, these elements to deal with. So that was the method. And when I first started, we didn't have any cell phones. We just had to guess,
Mm.
and he'd sometimes walk with me. He was good about that. And through the different walks, I had different support people. On the fourth walk, I had a person from Winnipeg, and he was the owner of a blue front Amazon parrot that talked. So like we were a real sensation. I was a monk going through the towns in Canada, and my buddy, he looked like a pirate, and then we had a parrot. And we got invited to all the schools, This was the most conservative parts of the country. And I had to be careful not to use the word yoga, but I could say God, all those things. And I could say I'm a Hare Krishna monk. That was okay.
Mhm.
And of course, oftentimes the talking parrot stole the show, but the whole school would empty out and come into the gymnasium. And from Northern Ontario right to the Alberta border, which is a long stretch, we got into all these schools. And
Mm.
so my support guy would go and make those arrangements
Right.
for speaking and connecting with people. Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah, because I mean, I imagine it would be quite a news story, and you can obviously use that for your own advantage, can't you?
Oh, for sure. And you were talking about confidence with Jack. It's like I was with a friend, my support guy at that particular time, third walk across Canada. And I actually offered a little prayer, said, Krishna, I haven't seen one bear on any of these walks, which is ridiculous. It's Canada. So 20 minutes later, yes, a grizzly comes around,
Wow.
and and we built up this confidence within us. We were very careful. We know when you're bear country, don't
Mm.
have smelly clothes. Watch what kind of soap you're using, even, the detergent you use, even deodorant, try to avoid it, all those things. And so this bear came, a car came, tooted its horn. It was a real quiet road. And then the bear snuck up behind us. We heard a snort, and then he was definitely stalking us. And we weren't quite sure what to do. I started to chant mantras like Namaste Narasimhaya, etc. And that gave us some confidence for sure. But he was just coming. His gait was much wider than ours,
Mm.
and he was easy, like 10 feet away from us, just ready to pounce practically. And we were at the Nancy Green Provincial Park or National Park. There were there are no houses. There's no one you could scream to for help. We were helpless. But then we heard a lion's purr, like in the distance. Really, what it was a tractor trailer or a lorry
Mm.
climbing the mountain, trying to make his way up there as slow as possible. And we heard it, and we could see the trucker coming up, but the bear didn't. He just went this way. What is that noise?
Yeah.
Finally, the truck came, in its full form, right behind the bear. He could feel it on his paws, vibration. He looked back and took off, and that was it. So you got to watch what you pray for.
Wow, that was a divine intervention. You're
Oh,
chanting to Narsimha. Wow,
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah, it's great. So, anyways, I explained the logistics, and David, for instance, he was not a good cook, and he was an salt kick, no salt kick, I mean to say.
Right.
And listen, Dave, look at my friend. This is white. This is salt. I'm sweating. I
Yes.
have to take some salt in there. You got to let me. I'll do the cooking. You do some reading. Do something. I'll do and he's making the chapatis, too cracker like. And I've worked in kitchens with Indian ladies and I know how to make chapati, so I just said, roll over Beethoven, I'm taking over this kitchen. Yeah. So
Amazing.
that was our method. That was our method. And I was it's really something when you're on a roll like that with your legs and you just don't want to stop. Yeah, it gets really aggravating, in fact, when you have to drive back to your tent to go for sleeping and your legs just want to keep moving. It's you know, you have to take that shower and it's imperative that you do some self massage or your support guy will do it, even if he doesn't know how. At least the touch is important, that you get relaxed. And you know, those are all the things you have to look after. You know, eat light. Wraps was our big thing. Shall I tell you? Oh, yes. We got into looking at what is the wild vegetables that you can eat out there, like the nettle and the fiddleheads and you know, wild sweet peas and whatnot that's out there. And cattails, the most, let's say, versatile of all the wild vegetables. We start to experiment with these things, you know, knowing well that, you know, there's a select few things that you can actually consume. Gives you a little extra boost. Yeah.
Cool.
So there's a lot to learn out there, more than just walking, but you know, how to deal with people, how to deal with media, how to deal with the authorities when they come. When I was in the States, they were sometimes kind of rough because I looked like I'm dressed in orange. So people were calling the police and saying, I think there's an escapee from a prison.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And my support guy, well, I had somebody walking with me. We shared the same birthday, October 5th, and his name was Stapleton, Trayvon. And he looked just like Bob Marley. He had dreadlocks. He was African American, thin, tall, lean. He did a lot of rapping, and I was teaching him Sanskrit words, and he was incorporating it into the songs. And you know, so we looked like a real odd couple. I'm a prisoner, and he looked like a drug lord. So but that's how you make friends with the authorities, and you know,
Amazing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Beautiful.
every
I
day
love
there's
the
some
question. Good,
Yeah, go
beautiful
ahead.
question. Yeah, I was just gonna say, because I want to be mindful of time, and we got one more hand up, but be awesome question, Sarah and George. We're sending our love high vibes over to Kent, UK. Thank you, thank you. And let's see, just in this last moment, we're bringing it over to New York City. Nityananda Chandra, welcome.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. Always
Rainbow,
great
how
to
are
see
you
you.
doing? Good to
Very
see
good,
you
very
too.
good.
We've done some plays together.
Yes. Looking
He's
forward
an
to this.
extrovert.
Quick question. So you have the name Bhaktimarga Swami, the master of the road of devotion. Did this Bhakti Marg name, did that come during your sannyas initiation, or did Srila Prabhupada give you that name years ago?
No, that name came from Prabhupada when I was back in '73. I was
Wow.
turned. I was 20. Probably I had my birthday. Yeah, no, I think I was still 20. And he gave me that name, and I always liked it. I don't know why he gave it to me. But then on the first day of the first walk that I did on Vancouver Island, it just dawned on me, wow, my guru is mystical. He knows what I'm all about. Here I'm doing my bhakti devotion on the path, on the road. That's what it means, the path of devotion. So I just did one of those red skeleton kicks on the side of the road.
Yeah.
How did he know?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. Thanks for clarifying that, Nityananda Chandra. Beautiful question. Let's send in our love appreciation. New York in the house. Thank you, Prabhu. And Maharaj, you know, our time is complete. We could just keep asking you questions and learning and soaking it in for hours. But parting words, what would you leave us with? You know, we got all these seekers on the path, finding our way. Something about bhakti has brought us to this conference, to this conversation. And, you know, we're exploring with chanting and kirtan and these different sadhanas. What would you leave us with as we continue on our Bhakti Marg?
Well, thank you. What I'd like to say is that something that I expressed to a person driving a muscle truck, but in a suit. And this is in Ohio, when I was walking in the US. And he pulled over and said, "So I see you're a monk. Do you have some words of wisdom?" I don't have too much time. And you could feel his energy. You're like, it's got to be fast. So I just said, well, two things that come to my mind is that humans are meant for walking. So I think that if we spend more time doing that, there will be less squawking, more walking, less squawking. So he liked that. Then I said, because we're human, we have a special ability to discern the difference between right and wrong. We just don't just go on instinctiveness. We have this spiritual side that needs to be cultivated. That's a special human right. So we should take full advantage of getting to our spiritual side and not just spoiling ourselves through physical materialistic endeavors. So he was happy to hear that. And again, he gave me a $20 bill for my little bit of advice, and he went about his way and I went about my way. So I just like to say for everybody too, don't spoil the human form of life. Take full advantage of this area that we need to refine. Tweaking is forever. Before I joined our mission, I remember James Bond, diamonds are forever. Yeah. Well, I think tweaking is forever, meaning that's something you always have to work on. Just fine tune as you go along. And we all know we have little demons inside. Address them, maybe you can talk to them, and say, listen, it's going to be a little different now. You've been ruling me. It's time for a switch. It's time for a switch.
Nice. I love it. Beautiful. Well, we're sending our love, Haribol, appreciation, Bhaktimarga Swami. Thank you for your time. Friends, thank you so much for being here live with us. We've got more sessions tomorrow, but for the rest of today, let's soak this in. Human beings are meant for walking. Let's do some walking. And yes, please share.
Yes, I've just got the book I've written about my walking experiences, The Saffron Path, about, Ireland, Israel, everything that I've done. And then I've also written a book on poetry, The Walking Monk, expressing Vedic heroes and thoughts along the way while walking. So stories about gossip, my take on gossip, and some of the human frailties that we have.
Beautiful. I love it. Well, definitely underneath the video, we're going to share links to both books, to your Instagram, to your website, and cannot wait to cross paths, literally walking at some point. But let's send our love, high vibes again to Maharaj for being here with us, and everybody else. Make it an amazing rest of the day, and we will see you again soon. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.